Good morning. My name's Helen Jackman. I'm Chief Executive of the Macular Disease Society. Thank you all very much for coming and welcome to our annual conference. This year, as I'm sure you know, is something of a landmark for the Society. It's our 25th anniversary. A lot of progress has been made since the Society's establishment in 1987 by our wonderful founder, Elizabeth Thomas. We now have a very effective treatment for wet age-related macular degeneration, and our understanding of the condition is moving forward each year, with promising new treatments on the horizon, including things like stem cell therapy and gene therapy. And new technologies are beginning to offer real hope from the development of things like bionic eyes and visual prosthesis, through to very clever new low vision aids, and even mainstream devices like the iPads and the Kindles, which I'm sure some of you probably have tucked away in your bags or pockets. We're going to hear quite a bit about some of those things during the course of the day. The Society's also grown significantly over the last 25 years. We've got a strong membership of about 16,000 members around the UK. We've just launched our 250th group, which happily coincides with our 25th anniversary, which we're very, very proud of. And we've got about 1,000 volunteers around the country, all of whom are passionate and committed to helping to support others affected by this condition. I'm sure you'll agree, though, that despite all of this progress, we've still got an awful lot of work to do. Research funded by the Society this year tells us that age-related macular degeneration is by far the most common cause of sight loss. Over 500,000 people in the UK are affected by the condition. And we're always hearing about how our population is getting older, so that won't be any surprise. But that means that the numbers are on the increase in terms of those living and affected by the condition. We reckon that by 2020, those numbers are going to increase by about a third. And we're looking at about 70,000 people each year developing the condition. So those are very significant numbers. Around half of those people will develop wet age-related macular degeneration. And the pressure that this is placing on macular clinics around the country is significant. And we know that there are some very excellent examples of practice around the country, and we're going to be recognising some of those today in our awards. But despite that, we know that only half of the clinics are able to meet the recommended waiting time of 2 weeks for treatment. And as such, we're going to be launching a little report on Monday and trying to draw attention to this and make the case for further investment in macular services. For people with dry macular degeneration and other forms of the condition that can't be treated, the situation's perhaps even more challenging. Public funding cuts are impacting on already very stretched low vision and rehabilitation services. And I think in this context, the work of the Society is even more important. Right from our services that help people living with the condition today, including the work that our volunteers do, our local groups, our helpline and our counselling service, and all of the work that we're trying to do to improve things in the future, particularly our research programme and our efforts to raise awareness. So in our 25th anniversary, we've been working really hard to try and strengthen our services and our information. I'm sure some of you will have attended some of our top doctors seminars. We ran these in partnership with the Royal College of Ophthalmologists, 8 events around the country, and they were extremely popular and well received. And we're going to learn from those events. We can always improve things, but we hope to run 6 more around the country next year in slightly different places. So we hope that they may be a top doctors near you at some point next year. This year, we've also launched a new telephone befriending service, and that's really about trying to connect up people with different forms of macular disease so that we can try and make people feel connected with others that know exactly what you're going through. We've also extended our eccentric viewing programme, and this helps people to make the best use of their remaining peripheral vision. We've trained more volunteers who are now working to teach the technique to other people, and we've trained now over 1,000 people. We've also been teaming up with local societies to equip them and their staff and volunteers with the tools to deliver the technique, because I think we recognise that as an organisation working on our own, we simply can't meet the demand for the training. We're also planning a new scheme called the Natty Daily Living Champions Scheme, which aims to help showcase different low vision aids and new assistive technologies, and we hope to be able to launch this scheme next year. We've also been preparing for the future. We know that awareness of the condition is still a real challenge, and we also need to improve awareness of the society. We need to ensure that we're appealing to the next generation of people that will develop age-related macular degeneration, as well as those with juvenile forms of the condition. As such, in the early part of this year, we set about finding out a little bit more about what people thought of the society and what their perceptions were of our work. We were really lucky to receive a grant entirely dedicated to allowing us to deliver this work. And we used this money to gather the views of hundreds of people with the condition and our members, family, friends and carers and professionals, and really importantly, and these people were quite hard to find, but people who didn't know about the society. You can't find people if you don't know who they are, but there are lots of them out there and we need to make sure we're reaching them. So we worked hard to try and talk to people who didn't know about our work and ask them what they thought of the way that we present ourselves and the way we communicate. And as a result of all this, we're going to be making some changes next year. And all of this work is also funded by this restricted grant that we received. We're going to be dropping the word disease from our title. And so from next year, we're going to simply be called the Macular Society. Oh, well, good. That announcement has met with positive responses, but I think that might be the first round of applause we've had, so I'm extremely pleased by that. And we're also going to be refreshing the look and feel of some of our publications and the way that we present ourselves, just to try and make ourselves a little bit more appealing to different audiences. Not a radical change, you'll still recognise us, and we're still very much the same organisation, but we just need to make sure that we're ready for the future. Along all of this, and I think even more importantly, we're going to be working really, really hard to get ourselves out there. You can twiddle with logos and publications until the cows come home, but what's important is that you actually work really hard to make sure that we're reaching people with these new materials. So we're going to be teaming up with another sight loss charity to get our materials and publications into the eye clinics in a much more consistent way. And we really want to make sure that the teams within the eye clinics know about our work and are referring people to us on diagnosis. We're also starting to think about campaigns which really harness our powerful membership base and help us represent our members and speak with an even louder voice. And we're also really pleased that thanks to the generosity of many of you and our other members, we'll be able to make some larger grants for research next year. And we hope these are going to trigger even more substantial and strong projects, which will hopefully work towards the all-important new treatments and hopefully a cure for this condition. So, as I hope you can hear, we've had a very busy year, but I think we recognise we've still got more to do. This year, however, has been tinged with real sadness following the death of our chairman, Alan Alderman. Alan died on the 12th of July after a long illness, which he bore with real courage. His death's a real blow to the society and to all who knew him. Alan was chairman for nearly 6 years. Before that, he was a trustee and heavily involved in local groups, including the Reading Group. Alan never allowed his health issues to affect his role. He was always positive, philosophical, and despite his illness, he continued in his role, undeterred, with great grace and humour. As chairman, Alan led the Society through significant growth and change. His business experience, gained from years at Mars, was a huge asset to the organisation, and he had a really masterful ability to achieve consensus. Alan cared really deeply about this organisation and our members and our groups, and he really did see the volunteers as the backbone of the Society. He was a really wonderful man, and I'm sure will be missed by all of us here today. And I think today we need to think of him and thank him, and I suppose this conference for me is kind of dedicated to his memory. Alan was due to retire in April next year, having served his 6 years. And so we'd already been through the process of starting to think about electing his successor. And I suppose at these kind of sad times, it's always difficult to look to the future. But Alan was very keen to secure his legacy, and he was extremely confident in our new chairman, who I'd like to introduce to you now. Richard Elliot has been involved in the Society for a number of years now, and he's leader of the thriving Shrewsbury group. He's also a prolific eccentric viewing trainer, and he comes to the Society with a wealth of business experience, and we're all very much looking forward to working with him. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Richard Elliot, our new chairman.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Helen said, it has been a sad time for the Society. This was to be the last conference chaired by Alan Alderman before he retired. And he was retiring in April next year, so ordinarily I would have been taking next year's conference. And I would have had a few months to shadow Alan, probably 6 to 8 months, in his role, so that there could have been a smooth transition. And so my first formal words to this conference is, in fact, to offer my thanks to Helen and all of the people in Andover who've been so kind and gracious and very, very helpful to me in these difficult times when we lost Alan. So, Helen, I would like you to thank all the staff when you return to Andover for their help.